When I was in 7th grade, there were two classes that everyone took. Not electives, not if you're interested, not only if your parents signed a permission form. Everyone took them. Home economics and industrial arts. Some schools called it shop. At Teague Middle School, it was called industrial arts, which already made it sound important, like something you might actually use later. And these weren't throwaway classes. They weren't time fillers. They weren't rewards for good behavior. They were just part of being a student, which now feels almost suspicious. Now you might assume, because this was a long time ago, that the boys went to industrial arts and the girls went to home ec. That would make sense, right? Except that's not what happened. Every student took both classes. 1 semester of home ec, 1 semester of industrial arts. No debate, no exceptions, which, looking back, feels either wildly progressive or just quietly sensible. Nobody made a big speech about it. Nobody congratulated themselves. No, they just assumed everyone would need these skills. And then they moved on. Home economics wasn't just cooking. Yeah, we learned how to make basic meals. The kind of meals where nobody dies and the smoke alarm almost always stays quiet. But we also learned things that now feel almost radical. We learned how to balance a checkbook, not an app, an actual checkbook. We learned how to go on a job interview, what to wear, how to shake hands, how to answer questions without immediately panicking. There was a whole section on etiquette, how to eat in a nice restaurant without embarrassing yourself or everyone who came with you. Which fork, outside in. Where the napkin goes, folded on your lap. How to eat in a restaurant without looking like you were just thawed out of a glacier from the last ice age. Nobody said, "You'll need this someday." They just assumed you were going to be an adult and act accordingly. Looking back, home ec wasn't about cooking. It was about existing around other people. It wasn't about becoming the person everyone avoids inviting out to dinner. They didn't teach us how to find ourselves. They taught us how not to ruin a meal with other human beings, which, honestly, might be the harder skill. Today, if you want to cook a meal, there's an app for that. If you want to balance your checkbook, there's an app for that. If you want to apply for a job, yeah, there's an app for that too. And that sounds like progress until the app crashes. Because at some point, we didn't simplify life. We outsourced competence. We stopped teaching people how things work and started teaching them which button to press. And buttons are great until they disappear. Then there was industrial arts. This was the class where you learned how the physical world works, basic home repairs, how things fit together, how things come apart, sometimes by accident. We learned the basics of car maintenance, how to check the oil, how to change a tire, which meant that later in life, when something went wrong, you didn't immediately assume the universe had betrayed you. And then there was the teacher, Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen drove a Rolls-Royce, not because he was rich, but because his hobby was restoring them, completely rebuilding them. And one day, we walked into class, and there was a Rolls-Royce engine sitting on an engine stand, just there. No dramatic reveal, no safety video, no panic. It was basically, All right, let's take a look at this. At no point did anyone say, "You're not ready for this." Instead, they treated us like people who would eventually be ready for life. In industrial arts, they handed us tools, not disclaimers, not waivers, tools. Today, everything comes with a warning label: coffee cups, ladders, common sense. We added more instructions while expecting less understanding. And somewhere along the way, we replaced "here's how it works" with "don't touch anything." Those two classes shared an unspoken philosophy. Home ec taught you how to live with other people. Industrial arts taught you how to live in the physical world. Together, they said something very simple. You're going to have responsibilities. You're going to have problems. You're going to break things. It happens. Happens to everyone. So, we're giving you a fighting chance. No inspirational posters. No mission statements. Just skills. But somewhere along the way, those classes disappeared. Not because they failed, but because we decided they didn't fit neatly into test scores. We didn't replace them with better skills. We replaced them with nothing, and then acted surprised when people struggled with basic adulthood. We built a world where everything has a warning label, but a lot of people don't know how to use a screwdriver. I'm not saying the past was perfect. It wasn't. But some things worked, and we quietly stopped doing them. Maybe we don't need more apps, more disclaimers, more step-by-step instructions for things that used to be common knowledge. Maybe we just need to teach kids how to cook a meal, change a tire, balance a checkbook, and talk to other humans without panicking. Because those weren't old-fashioned skills, they were just life. I'm curious what it was like where you went to school. Did you have home ec, shop class, something like this that quietly prepared you for life? Or did your school skip all of it? If this brought back a memory or two, I'd honestly love to hear it. Thanks for watching.